And it can get us into some trouble. Now, getting back to taxes and money, which is where we started, that's just a symptom of this whole bigger question. Because the fact is, Jesus says that even in this world of grays that we live in, there's black and there's white. You ever hear the saying, you can't serve two masters? It's a Bible saying where Jesus says, it's like a person who has a servant, if he has two bosses, a worker has two employers, he's going to have to pick one or the other some of the time. It says he'll either hate one and love the other, or love one and hate the other. You can't serve God and wealth. You could put in you can't serve God and country there too, just as easily, even as controversial as that might sound. The times come when you have to do one or the other. And in those times, you need to know who comes first. It doesn't mean that you can't be a good American and a good Christian. It doesn't mean you can't even be a wealthy person and a good Christian. But it means that if you are a wealthy person, and wealth, believe me, has a lot of meanings. A lot of us think we're not very wealthy until we go and remember how desperate so much of the world is. In Bible terms, if you know tomorrow you're going to have a roof over your head, and if you know you're going to be able to eat, that makes you wealthy. What made you rich in the Bible was that you knew you were going to be able to keep living and have other stuff. So if you have a roof and food and anything else, you're in the rich category when you read the Bible. So that includes, a lot more people than think they're rich. Being rich is dangerous. Being rich, if you're a Christian, is dangerous because it gives you something to focus on other than God. It gives you something to rely on other than God. Jesus says it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who's rich to enter the kingdom of God. That's us. That's not Bill Gates he's talking about. It's not Warren Buffett. It's not Jimmy Buffett. He's talking about us. It's harder. So, think about this. It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for me to enter the kingdom of God. That should give us pause. That should make us think a little bit. And when Jesus said this to the disciples, you know what they said? They said, well, who can be saved then? If the rich people can't do it with all their advantages, how can anybody do it? And Jesus said, nothing's impossible with God. God could get that camel through the eye of the needle. God can get me into heaven. God can get me into heaven. God can get me into that new life. God can get me relying on Him and Him alone. So today, after we've all sent off our tax bills, and most of us are going to get refunds. Let's be honest. For all the whining and the complaining about tax day, way more people get checks back than send payments off. Today, as we think about our money, kind of a little bit more than we might usually, as we think about our government, as we think about all those relationships, as we take that day of the year to whine and complain, which is our right as Americans, maybe our most important right is the right to whine and complain about our government. As we do that, let's remember that, first of all, we claim to be Christians. And as Christians, what we do with our money, what we do with our stuff, what we do with our country, isn't the most important thing. The most important thing is how we stand in relationship to God. And so, going out into this world where we have so much stuff that's so easy to take for granted, let's be more willing even to turn our stuff over. Not just our physical things, but our lives, our attitudes, our actions, and really make ourselves God's people. To not put up those idols, and to make sure that we're never in a situation where we're choosing between God and wealth. I'd like you to consider this as we stand together and we sing the invitation.